Obviously, some time has passed now between after the TJ Dillashaw versus Cory Sandhagen fight, and in my opinion, I think TJ Dillashaw looked very impressive in there. I feel like he looked if you look at the bout beforehand, in terms of the advantages that Cory had on TJ. Cory was like 5-6 years younger. On top of that, he was taller than him, so he had the height advantage. On top of that, he had also the reach advantage. He literally had everything going for him in this particular fight in terms of advantages. And TJ Dillashaw, despite coming off a 5-year layoff, managed to be very competitive with him. And regardless of whether you thought he won the fight or didn't win the fight, you can't deny the fact that he looked very good in there. And a lot of people might say, might actually blame it on drugs and say, oh, he must have been on something, otherwise how did he perform so well? But in my opinion, if a fighter has been caught for drugs, I think the UFC policy with USADA is to test them even more. Because if you've been caught once, it's more than likely you might be juicing again. If you're willing to do it once, you might be doing it again. But regardless of all of that, you have to admit that TJ Dillashaw looked quite impressive in there. I'm actually glad to see TJ back. He doesn't have the nicest personality, it must be said. He's not the nicest guy, but in terms of his fighting ability, it can't be denied. He is one of the best bantamweights that the UFC has ever had in terms of his pure ability. If you look at him in his prime, his striking ability was impressive, but more than that, if you look at him in his prime, he had very good takedown defense, and his wrestling was on point. So in every aspect, he was seen as what you would want a mixed martial artist to be. I mean, he had his wrestling on point. His striking was very good. He was very tough in game. He was a very strong fighter. He won the bantamweight title, the UFC bantamweight title, twice. So my question is to you lot: do you think he can win it for the third time? How do you think he'll do against the likes of Petr? Obviously, Petr was the last person to hold the title until Sterling won it. But I think a lot of people could say that Sterling, although he won the fight because of the doctor stoppage, he didn't actually win the fight, because before that Sterling was absolutely dominating him. So how do you think TJ Dillashaw would do against him? If it was a prime TJ Dillashaw, then I'll definitely think he would destroy Petr. I mean, Petr, I am a fan of his, and I do like the way he carries himself, but a prime Dillashaw, I just think is just on a whole nother level to him in terms of his ability. But this version of Dillashaw, it's not as good as a prime Dillashaw. It's still a very good Dillashaw, but it's not as good as a prime Dillashaw. So how do I think this version of him does? I think it'll be a very interesting fight to see how far both of them come. If I had the choice of who I'd actually pick, I think I might actually go for Petr at this point in time. But I think it'll be a very close fight. I do think Dillashaw beats what's his name? Sorry, escaped me. Sterling. I think he beats Sterling quite convincingly, Aljamain Sterling. But I think a fight between Yan would be very interesting. But yeah, that's my opinion. Tell me your opinion. Were you impressed by his performance? I actually think TJ Dillashaw won by a point, in my opinion. On my scorecard, I think he won. A lot of people thought that Cory Sandhagen won, and I wouldn't deny that. But regardless of whether you thought Cory Sandhagen won or not, it's hard to deny the fact that you can't. It's hard not to be impressed by how well TJ Dillashaw looked in there. So, in my opinion, I think that's what I think. That TJ Dillashaw does have a future in the sport, and I think I was quite impressed with how good he looked. You got to take into account he was going up there against a guy who's 5 to 6 years younger than him. He's going up there against a guy who's got longer reach than him, who's also taller than he is. And despite all of that, you're coming off a 5-year layoff, and he still managed to beat the guy. And regardless of, it was a very close fight, and it was a very fun fight to watch while it lasted. But regardless of what you think, I think he did perform quite impressively. And I wouldn't say it's a robbery that he won. If Cory Sandhagen would have won, I wouldn't consider that a robbery. It's a very close fight. But at this point in time, I think TJ won by a single point on my card. So yeah, that's my opinion. What's your opinion? Where do you think TJ Dillashaw goes from now? And if he becomes a 3-time bantamweight champion, do you consider him one of the greatest bantamweights in UFC history? I think that you can make a case for him being that if he does win the bantamweight title for the 3rd time, in my opinion. But anyway, that's my opinion. Tell me your opinion below, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace out.